Welcome to the Foundation Series, your deep dive into startup compensation with industry leaders from across the startup world. Join me, Matt McFarlane, a people operations leader turned compensation specialist, as we uncover the strategies and practices driving success in tech startups around the world. Hear insights from heads of people, founders, and experts as we explore how to build robust compensation frameworks that not only fuel growth and retention, but do so in the dynamic startup environment that we all know and love. Let's get into it. AI is coming for compensation, but will it fix bias or just accelerate it? This episode, we dive into the ethics, risks, and potential of AI in shaping pay decisions across your company. Aubrey, it's so great to have you here on the Foundation Series. Thank you for joining me. You're obviously an incredibly prominent voice on LinkedIn for a range of different things. I know I have really thoroughly enjoyed, reading and engaging with your content. So it's a real pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'd love for you to spend a minute introducing yourself for those who maybe aren't as deeply familiar with you as I am.
Hey, everyone. If you haven't heard my digital soapbox, LinkedIn is kind of where I store all my unsolicited opinions. I am Aubrey Blanche-Serellano, and I'm the founder of a company called the MathPath. But what I really focus on is helping organizations build and scale equitable people and culture initiatives, as well as responsible AI. So think of me as someone who can kind of operationalize ethics within the context of business. But I'm so excited to be here because one of the things that I'm most proud of is the work that I've done around pay equity at CultureAmp. So I was a VP at CultureAmp most recently, where we were able last year to report the smallest gender pay gap of our peer tech companies. So I like to say we fucking won justice, which feels like the best win you could possibly ever have, which probably tells you a lot about me.
Aubrey, I'm so excited to talk to you in this episode about the role of AI in compensation. But I think in particularly, is there a way that AI can maybe even fix compensation? This is one that I'm hoping to learn a lot from you on, because it's something that I use AI every day, day in and day out in what I do. But maybe let's start with where do you think AI fits in compensation? What role does it play?
So I think that AI is especially good for analytical and pattern matching tasks. And so in my future world, somebody go build this software, pitch it at me. I have no money, but I will find someone to invest in you. Is the idea of once you have all that comp data, you could basically have AI do a really thoughtful pay equity analysis for you, assuming that you can aggregate data. So some kind of magical BI comp tool that basically looks and says, hey, the expected comp for this person was here and their increase is only here. This is concerning for these reasons. And that's kind of more deterministic AI. But I think you could also use Gen AI to ask it, what are the reasons what are the theories about why this gap is there and what's the recommended action? So that for me, I think it could be used in really sociopathic ways. I don't even know if I want to put that energy in the world and inspire someone. You could see it going the other way where someone says well, calculating based on this person's thing, this is the lowest amount of money that they'll be willing to accept. And so we'll lowball everybody. It's the supercharged terrible recruiter. AI could do that. And I just want to live in a world where it says, hey, something's not fair. This would have been really hard to catch in a spreadsheet, but I'm able to crunch the data and give you that in real time. So that's my dream world.
That's the dream. Oh, I love it. And I think, companies that are, and we talked about this previously, but I think companies that are really clear on things like what's important to them, so their values, maybe their guiding principles around pay, are going to have invariably an easier time using AI to interrogate things like that. Let's maybe flip a little bit to the some of the potential drawbacks and the risks around AI. And something that I've really enjoyed reading your writing on, which is around ethics and AI and bias and things like that. Is there a risk that we just shift human bias into that kind of machine bias when we trust AI with compensation? Where do you think the pitfalls are without necessarily giving people clues and ideas to run away with?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think this is especially relevant when we're talking about things like anyway, like deep learning, where we don't actually always know why an AI is arriving at like the decision or the output that it has. So what we know is that especially if a training data set used to develop a tool was actually based on biased or discriminatory data, that model is going to learn that that is the correct version of the universe. So like computers don't really have morals, but what they do is a sense of what's correct versus incorrect in terms of how closely does this adhere to the pattern I already know. And so correct simply means reflects the status quo. And when I say it that way, it's probably pretty clear about why AI could actually embed compensation biases. So this is a resume study, but I think it makes sense, is Amazon years ago built like a resume parser, and then they had to shut it down because it learned that to reject women because men were disproportionately hired at Amazon. And so the AI learned that anything that suggested that the applicant was a woman meant they were less suitable. And so obviously no one on the team intended for that to happen, or at least I'm not aware of it. But the same thing could happen with compensation tools. And so something that I find really helpful, and someone who's been a mentor to me, is Kieran Snyder, who was the former CEO, and she's now the chief scientist emeritus at Textio. And she talks about every data set has an agenda, and you need to know what yours is. And so I really appreciate this frame that if we know a data set is biased, we can actually program models to use those patterns as problems. So we can define for the computer that these unexplained gaps in pay are actually errors to correct as opposed to patterns to match. But that requires what I like to work with companies on, which is a responsible AI framework and governance strategy that defines what good looks like and then builds kind of the structures to achieve it. So AI is going to do bad things left on its own. You need to intentionally build for good stuff if you want it to do good things in the world, which maybe is a bit of a dismal take.
No, well, maybe, but I think it just, it's like anything. I think even if it wasn't being delivered by an AI, you really should be, checking your homework. And I think, back to a point that you made in the previous episode, which is around auditing and just, checking your own homework and just making sure that actually the thing that you intended is the outcome that's being achieved as well.
Yeah, I mean, people know, I don't know if people have never heard of hallucination with a large language model, which is a very anthropomorphized term that just means the model made shit up.
Yeah.
And so understanding that it can do that because the model isn't trying to be right. It's trying to predict what you want, which may or may not be the same thing. This is really silly. I was planning a trip last weekend and it made up an entire tour company for me. And I was like, it was sort of based on reality, but it wasn't. It was like in the wrong state and didn't do the thing that it said it did. And so I just share that as an example of where even on really basic tasks that like Google would give you the correct answer. Again, this might be something I was doing a comparison. Like you should always be skeptical of the AI. One thing that is important is also giving people the option to choose the AI answer builds two skills. It builds critical thinking and sort of looking, but research also shows that people are more bought into answers that they have the ability to change when they come from an AI. So if you're looking for that kind of stakeholder management piece, giving people the ability to analyze the output before they accept it both helps avoid that kind of degradation of critical thinking, and it actually increases adoption and acceptance.
There's a whole path, there's a whole branch there that I feel like we could go down around like what this presents for kind of early career people who maybe don't yet have the experience to be able to critically analyze a response from AI. But we maybe won't, maybe we'll go in a slightly different direction here, which is, what with some of these kind of futures that we've talked about with AI, how do you think that changes the role of like a head of people? So maybe it's reducing the emphasis on, direct sort of analytical skills, but, where do you see that role augmenting or kind of leading to with respect to how they're kind of governing or leading comp practices in the business?
Yeah, so I think that, yes, there can be, I think the idea of testing for AI literacy is going to become even more important because you need someone with the basic analytical skills. Like I do worry about early career folks who aren't learning how to do it themselves. I have a side a side note about calculators. So I think that someone needs to understand the basic mechanics of how the AI is achieving what it's doing with analysis. I don't think that means you need to have done the analytics by hand. So I don't know if you did Australia have like the TI-83 calculator?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I grew up in the US. So like I just remember the panic when I was like in like middle school and secondary school, where everyone's like, well, you have to do the quadratic equation by hand or like you'll never understand math. And that was
Yeah.
clearly like insane. And so I again want to learn from predecessors and not be the elder that I was annoyed by. And so I think taking that logic is you do need to teach the basic logic of something so that someone understands how something operates. So I think for junior people, it is incumbent upon us older people or more experienced people, however you want to talk about it, to actually learn how to teach AI literacy and learn how to be better teachers of the critical skills that someone needs in order to operate in an AI world. Because my worst case is not that someone's using AI foundationally throughout their day. I think that's kind of inevitable. It's, are they doing it without having any context of why what's popping out is getting to them? That's what's concerning to me, because I think that ability to curate and use judgment is the thing AI is never going to be able to replace. Like, it's not, everyone talks about like empathy and things like that, and I think that's true, but I think it's actually the ability to judge and curate that is the human element that's always going to be necessary for really good automated outputs.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I want to revisit something you mentioned before around hallucinating and just ask you to daydream with me for a second. But I'm curious how you think AI is going to help compensation show up, on the candidate or the employee side. Maybe you've seen some really great examples already where companies have kind of embedded great practices. But where do you think in sort of aiding that experience for the people that you employ, where do you think that's going to go for companies?
Oh my gosh, I'm just making things up. I've never seen this, but
Let's
I
do
would
it. Let's
love
freewheel.
if like, so, and I'm thinking about like kind of a RAG model where like a particular like GPT or AI was trained on like a very specific corpus of material that would include the articulation of the comp philosophy and things like your market targets and, your average range variance and all of these things. And there's basically a bot that like, I can go on the website, like the careers website of this company, and I have these 60 questions about the culture and the way you think about comp. And this AI could actually provide me some basic examples. So for example, if I call them mercenaries, like the people who salary maximization is the primary thing. And I think that's fine. But that's some people's priority with salary is they would be able to go to that chatbot and say, is it likely that I can maximize my salary here? And that AI would say, this company targets 75% of the market for the midpoint. That means like, they're unlikely to be at the top of the market for the role you're looking for, but here's the other benefits that they provide, which means their total package is competitive in this way. Like a candidate could find that out before they put the effort into the application, before the recruiter spends time screening them and explaining that to them. So in my sense, if built really well, could actually contribute to a more consentful based recruiting system where companies are able to get the people that are really aligned to the way that they're running, and candidates who are a bad fit have the opportunity to select out if what the company offers just doesn't work for them.
Yeah, I love it. I agree so much. I think there's such a role for AI to play in helping clarify parts of the kind of total reward opportunity or package or whatever. I mean, something I see trip up people all over the place is equity, and just understanding what that means, what it represents, being able to explain it, articulate it, those sorts of things. I think it plays a really big role there. I wonder as well whether, and this is just me daydreaming with you, but I wonder as well with like things like, personalization. And I know this is an interesting one, especially with respect to pay equity, because it becomes really complex. But it's like, different people have different needs when it comes to their, things that appeal to them from a total rewards package. So how can companies kind of optimize their spend towards the things that are most compelling? But of course, one of the things that I think has always been a really large obstacle for companies in adopting something like that is how do you do things like make sure it's fair, it's consistent, that you're not kind of, that your record keeping's great so that you're not accidentally giving someone a pay increase who's decided to give up some of that pay for more equity, whatever that might be. So yeah, I'll be really curious to see where kind of AI starts to show up on the employee experience side of things. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Totally. But I think because of the analytical power that AI has, I think that solving some of those complexities becomes a bit more achievable. Yeah. And like I've spoken to companies where they say, your package is X dollars and you pick the mix of base salary and equity allocation based on whether you care about current value or future value. And you can see someone who is just financially motivated or someone who's caring for a large family, optimizing for that cash now. Versus someone who maybe doesn't have as many financial obligations in the present, says, you know what, I'm going to go low cash now. I'm going to take the gamble and spin the wheel that the equity is going to make sense later. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about the potential of like the more computing power we have to find new models of comp that still meet that bar of fair. I also think that would just be like the most fun math problem ever, to figure out how you audit it and how you run a comp program with something that is really personalized. I'm also really obsessed with a world in which everybody gets like a dollar allocation for benefits, and then they have a menu and they pick which benefits make sense to them. I think it would require a total overhaul of the financial model of the benefits industry to work. But that's something that I also think about, is I think benefits are often ignored when it comes to compensation, and the dollar value of the benefit is sometimes much lower than the meaning or the utility that it provides to that employee. And so if we could get to a world where we're providing really valuable personalized benefits, that might actually make startups feel that they're more competitive because they're offering something that has more intrinsic value than just another dollar in the bank account every month.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then I think again, this could be its own separate episode as well, but I was just thinking, as you were saying, about like being able to choose the composition of your package. But I think there's such interesting ethical questions there as well around like someone's ability to be able to give up all of their pay now for greater equity that may result in a much more compounded payday for them further down the road, versus someone who maybe can't and has to optimize for cash now. I think we could go on for that one forever, but yeah, how to mitigate that, is consent enough, all those sorts of things. It just presents such fascinating topics. I'm gonna have to do a whole hour special on just this one, maybe.
I mean, I'll come back. We can call some friends, like have a whole
Yes.
round table on it. I think I'm so motivated by my work by like imagining what could be. Start from like, wouldn't this be great? And then go, what would the hurdles be to get there? I like to believe that nothing's impossible. It's just some things are a bit trickier to achieve than others.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last one for me on AI is, what things do you think it will kill? So, if there's this kind of perfect world where AI can kind of come up with the perfect salary, or people are getting the choice of, package composition or something like that, I can see a world in which potentially salary negotiation is done away with, because people get to kind of switch things out or whatever, and the cost to the employer is potentially fixed, and they just get to pick and choose what they like from that menu you mentioned. What are some of the things that you think are going to disappear as a result of AI and comp practices?
I think a lot of the things that are going to disappear are just rote analytical tasks. So I don't think that means the jobs of folks in comp and ben roles are going to disappear. I think that's a really, really important distinction. I find it quite silly. I think we will see job loss. I think that is true. But I think the most competitive folks in this field, or any field of people, is that comp is inherently a deeply emotional human thing. Yes, it's numbers, it's all of that. But the fact is, you're not going to get to a great place with your comp program in a company without someone who has really high emotional intelligence and the ability to use the AI in a strategic way. And so the profile of the person in the profession might change radically. But I also don't think it needs to be a different person than the person in the job now, if they're willing to think about what the future needs of the business are in that function. So I just want to say that I do think there will be job loss, in the sense that the traditional jobs will disappear, but people do not have to lose their jobs if they kind of prepare for the future of that. But I see these kind of rote analytical tasks. Yes, something like getting an offer prepared, things like offer approvals. Like that can be automated with a couple of clicks. It doesn't need to be a bunch of emails and spreadsheets and Slack and all of that. So I think that really smart organizations are going to start automating the kind of work that doesn't require specialized expertise. But I think that the smart folks are starting to prepare by upskilling themselves on AI, data analysis, things like that, so that they remain as the most competitive kind of forefront of the field, because the need for humans to help with comp is not going to go away.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. The work still needs to be done. The lesson is learn AI. Be the person that can really embrace some of these skills and be more efficient, more effective in how the job's delivered. I love it. Thanks so much for helping us unpack the role of AI in compensation.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. This is definitely a topic I'm happy to geek out about. So if anyone wants to send their opinions to my inbox on LinkedIn, I'm excited to hear them.
I'll make sure to link it in the show notes. You heard it here first. AI won't replace your comp team, but it will change it. The opportunity isn't automation alone. It's applying human judgment to build something fairer, faster, and more transparent. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Foundation Series. Make sure to head over to our website to subscribe to the Foundation Series for monthly editions featuring future interviews on startup compensation. In each edition, we'll explore the different strategies, trends, and challenges faced by startups around the world. If you have a burning topic you'd like me to cover or a standout guest that you want to hear from, drop me an email so I can dive deeper into the compensation topics that matter most to you. Join me next time as we continue to uncover the strategies and practices driving success in global tech startups around the world. Thanks for listening.